I want to welcome everyone and our special guests also of the El Paso County Historical Commission. I think right now at this time, if you are here with the El Paso County Historical Commission, or you're a guest of that commission, would you please stand and let us give you an applause? We're so glad you're here. Thank you. We appreciate your being here very much. And now I'd like to introduce the head table. And I'm going to start to my left, and we have Gary Williams, Will DeBusk. These are people from the Plaque Committee. And we have Leslie Burkloff, Bernie Sargent, Mary Railey, Tripper Goodman, Elizabeth Goodman Levy, and Eleanor Goodman. At this time, I'd like to ask Mary Baquera, one of our members, to come and give us our Americanism presentation.
Good afternoon. I have a question for all of you to keep in mind. You don't have to answer it. But is it possible for someone to become an American hero when they are not an American? There are three men that I'd like to talk to you about briefly. One was a Dutchman, Jewish. The other one was German, Jewish. And the third one was Austrian, Catholic. And how these three men will come together is quite interesting. And if it wasn't so serious and so dangerous what they all had to do, it's almost a comedy because of things that they actually went through and got away with it. The first one was Hans Winsberg. He was the Dutchman. And his father, sometime in the middle 1930s, about 34, 35, he sent them to the United States, he and his twin brother, because he knew what was happening in Europe. This is the time when the National Socialist Party is taking over. And he wants to save his two children. They come and they settle in Brooklyn, New York, with some relatives. Hans will never see his father and his younger brother. They were sent to Poland, and there they died. He never saw his mother or younger sister because they ended up in Auschwitz, and they died there. The second one, the German, he and his family migrated to the United States before they had all the restrictions imposed on traveling outside of Germany. He was Friedrich Meyer. Then, when the attack on Pearl Harbor took place, these two men are going to go ahead and volunteer to join and fight for the United States. At the beginning, they were not accepted. They were actually labeled as enemy aliens. But they kept at it. They kept at it. And eventually, the two of them are going to join the Army. The third one, I'll tell you about in a little bit. Now, when Frederick, and he liked to call himself Fred, when he was being turned down, he said, "I have the best two elements to be a good soldier. I hate the Nazis, and I love America." So they took him in, and they're going to be trained. Eventually, they find out that they're very intelligent. They're learners, quick learners. They're fluent in German. They know about the terrain. They know about the traditions, etc. And so they're keeping an eye on them. And eventually, they invite them to join the OSS. The OSS would be what today we call the CIA. And they're going to be trained as spies, but their mission is going to be to go behind enemy lines. So if you can now start to visualize the danger that they're going to be placed in. So they're going to receive their training, but they need a third man. And this is then when the Austrian is going to come in. and his name was Franz Wieberg. Now, he actually had served in the German army. He was an officer. He had received various medals because of what he had done. Eventually, he becomes, he figures that he doesn't like what is going on, the orders that they are given. And so he deserted. And he feels that his principles are better than what the Nazis had to offer. Now, the fact that he was in a German uniform, he ends up being picked up as a prisoner of war, and he ends up in a camp. So when they need the third man, Fred is going to go into this camp and look around and see if they could get one of these German prisoners to join the OSS. Because after all, they would have the latest information. They would know exactly what was going on behind the lines that the Americans, the Allies, could not see. Now, the three then are going to receive all kinds of training. They're going to be trained in demolition, in the hand-to-hand combat. More importantly, the Morse code, how to decipher the written notes that they're going to be sending and receiving, etc. And talking about what I said, comedy, Hans said that one time he was asked to report to a certain area because he was going to receive training insofar as firing weapons. And so he goes and he waits and waits. Finally, someone shows up, and this officer asks him one question. And he says, "Can you do this?" And he said, "Sure, I can do that." He says, "Okay, any weapon you get, you pull the trigger and aim at someone." That was all the training that they received. They're going behind enemy lines, remember. They're going to be shot at all different kinds of weapons. Okay, so they're going to be trained in all these things. Also, they need someone to, of course, carry them behind enemy lines, which would be around Innsbruck. No one wants to fly the plane. It was almost a suicide mission. Very few pilots made it back. Eventually, one American pilot by the name of Gilsberg, he decides that he will fly them. Now they're thinking, we're going to land, they're going to put us off, and we go. When they're up in the air, then they're told you have to jump. Now, Franz had never had any training as to parachuting. So here, and this is a video that you can also watch on TV, on YouTube. Hans says, "We were told jump." You know, I'd be afraid to jump from this roof. Can you imagine jumping from hundreds and hundreds of feet up in the air? So they jump. Luckily, they fall close to each other. And so they're there, freezing weather, snow up to their chest. Another problem, no skis. The skis had landed someplace else. And so they start walking and walking, and of course, they're almost ready to give up. But Fred, who had become the leader, he says, "We can't do it. If we do, we're going to freeze to death." And so they finally come across a farmhouse. And in this farmhouse, they tell the farmer that they were skiers, but they had become separated from the rest of the group. So he lends them a sled. Now visualize 3 grown men with some supplies, whatever they were able to carry, and they have to go on this sled. Now they're going down through the slopes, the mountains, the crevices, etc., at about over 60 miles per hour. And you know what Fred says? "This was the ride of my life." You know, he has this sense of humor. They finally get to Innsbruck or around that area, and he makes contact with the fiancé, and this is Franz. And she and the mother are going to help them. The main thing they have to do is to set up the radio operator. They're having to collect information and then radio it back. Now the other 2, Fred and Franz, they're going to get a job along the shipyards. And they're able to collect information as to the ships coming in, the cargo that they're taking, where they are going, what time they're arriving, and all this information is being sent back. Now, 2 sisters that Franz had are the ones that carry the messages. And of course, if they had been discovered, if Franz, who was a deserter, had been discovered, they would have been executed immediately. Now, one of the sisters was a nurse at a military hospital, and she managed to take a uniform from a dead German soldier, gave it to Fred, and Fred was able to go into the hospital posing as a wounded soldier. And again, he does the same thing, obtains information from these wounded soldiers that had just come from the front lines. One of the biggest source of information he obtained was from an engineer that had worked on the bunker that had been built for Hitler. And this is why the Allies knew the location of the bunker. Now, of course, like everything, they're going to be found out. Now, Hans and Franz are going to be able to escape, but Fred is the one who was captured. And he is going to have the worst that you can imagine of the tormenting, torturing, waterboarding, hanging him upside down. If you read the book, and the book is available, I mean, it's just sickening, all that he went through. But he doesn't break. And what they wanted to do was to find out where was the radio operator. Now, eventually, one time that he's taken to his cell and he's thrown there, one of the soldiers says, "You know, this fellow almost looks Jewish." And the other one said, "No, he can't be a Jew. He would not be able to support all the torture that we've put him through." So here again, all these things that are happening. One day, all of a sudden, Fred is taken to a farmhouse, and he's given a clean uniform, he's cleaned up and so on, and he walks into a room full of German officers. The idea was, and this is around April of 1945, and Germany is losing the war. They're just about ready to surrender. And they wanted to know what will happen to us if we surrender. Now, Fred has no authority to make any deals, to say anything, but remember what Fred is like. And so he starts to talk to them. He convinces the governor of Tyrol to surrender, to go ahead and make Innsbruck an open city, so that when the Allies came, they were able to come in without firing a shot. So this is how strong Fred was. All 3 of them survived the war. When the book was printed, Fred was the only one alive at 92. And they received all kinds of medals from the government because of all that they had done for a country. So I ask you then, do you think someone can become an American hero if they are not American? Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The American presentation is part of our guest day program each month, and Mary gives a wonderful presentation. I'm sure you enjoyed that too. Would you help me give her a big thank you? At this time, I'd like to call on Karen Cox, who will give our devotion.
Would everyone please bow? Our dear, gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings of friends and family. We thank you for this beautiful place that we can come and enjoy the fellowship of other ladies. We ask you to be with each of us and to bless those who've prepared the food, and bless us to this food to the nourishment of our bodies, and us to your service. In your name we pray. Amen.
And now, would you please join me in lunch? Built in 1916, the Woman's Clubhouse is the first structure in Texas originally designed and built to serve as a clubhouse for women. Named to the National Register of Historic Places in 1979, the clubhouse is a valuable architectural contribution to El Paso. Contributions to the trust, being fully tax deductible, make meaningful memorial gifts as well as gifts to honor birthdays and outstanding accomplishments. Names of persons that are so honored will be inscribed in the Trust Book of Memories. So we just wanted you to know about our historical and charitable trust and the nice work that this trust does. Before we begin our program, we usually do this at the end, but not to take away from the other program, I'd like to thank the members who assisted and our special hostesses who prepared our meals today. Our decorations today were done by Lynn Folkedahl. And Lynn, where are you? Okay, thank you very much, Lynn. If you'll hold your applause, because I'm going to be reading for several people. And our greeter today was Mary Sue Overstreet, and she was assisted by a guest, Jean DeWitt. Would you two ladies wave at us wherever you are? Okay, good, thank you. Serving, and you know, sometimes you don't always call everyone's name, so ladies, if I miss someone, please let me know, okay? Serving today's lunch was Carrie Rankin, Margie Davis, Karen Cox, Pat Starboard, Sue Webb, and Jeannie Adams. Did I get everyone? Okay. And our luncheon chair, who prepared our delicious meal today, Judith Czar, was our chairman. Thank you, Judith. She was assisted by Pam Round, Shirley Lindsay, Sue Bennett, Barbara Lane, and Regina Bowman Dow. And we appreciate it very much, ladies, and thanks for the good meal. We all enjoyed it very much. Thank you. And now it's my distinct pleasure to begin our wonderful program this afternoon, and I'd like to call on Bernie Sargent.
Yeah, my name's Bernie Sargent, and I'd like to, first of all, thank everybody here for all the hard work they put into this event, behind the scenes, putting together this great program. And I think we should give... it took a little bit of time, a few phone calls, but we got it nailed down. But thank you very much for all that. I appreciate it. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Probably got tired of seeing that first slide. I put together a presentation and promptly left my mouse at home, so I'm going to have to do this manually, which I get pretty good at doing. I've been here before a few times. We worked a little bit a few years ago on another program that you ladies had, and it's always a pleasure to be here in front of such a distinguished organization that has a reputation for driving the community. I'll touch on that in just a second. Okay. I found this quote when I was doing a little bit of research on Olga and the family, and it says, "I do not know why it is that only novels and posthumous writings do men speak much of their wives," noted William Wallace Mills, one of El Paso's most prominent citizens, and even the novel usually ends where I think it should begin, with the marriage. W.W. Mills, does that ring a bell? The first president of the... Of course. There you go. So he knew where his strength was, and that's with his wife, as do I. And I count the days. I mean, I literally count the days. It's been 12,178 days since I stood with my wife on the altar, and I said, "I do," and she said, "I did what?" But truthfully, without Melissa, I would not have had the time to do what I do here and elsewhere in the community. She covers the bases. She's been a blessing to me and to the entire family, which grew by 2 last year. We took on my parents, and the only thing that's changed between the girls and my parents is the diapers are bigger. But she has been gracious and blessed. You know, I am truly blessed to have her at my side helping out. But W.W. Mills knew what he was talking about, as do most of us husbands, right? Can I see a nod? Yeah. Okay. And I'm not going to talk too much about the history because we have it here. They're going to share all of their thoughts and insights about this wonderful woman. And I don't want to touch on any of their subject matter. But I would like to thank the Women's Club of El Paso, the UTEP Special Collections, the County El Paso Commissioner's Court, Texas Historical Commission, and as I mentioned, my wife. It's just been great. As kind of a sidebar for the County Historic Commission, we are mandated by the state of Texas to be in existence. There's 254 counties in this great state of Texas, and we're considered one of the top 3 as far as county historic commissions go. So I got a great team here, and I'm really, really proud that so many of them showed up today, along with some of their spouses, because without them, we wouldn't be number 3. In fact, we'd probably be down about number 253, because we're so far west of I-35. But without further ado, I want to introduce, first of all, a good friend of ours and a great friend of El Paso, Texas, and another blessing for the state, someone who migrates, I should say immigrates, no, she drives every day from New Mexico, shows her passport at the border, and then goes down to the McGoffin home and spends a little bit of time at the McGoffin home. And she's done a wonderful job in driving the rehabilitation of that facility and the new visitor center. And if you haven't seen it, you got to go there. So I want to introduce Leslie Bergloff, who is the site manager. And let's give Leslie a big hand.
It is a pleasure to be here. The research for the Olga Kohlberg marker was done by Dr. Mark Syok. And unfortunately, he was unable to be here today, and so he told me what he wants me to say. So I'm going to do my best here. We're here to celebrate Olga Kohlberg and also to commemorate the contribution that her generation of women made to El Paso and its rich history. Olga was no ordinary person. Born into a Jewish household in the prosperous German state of Westphalia, she was unusually well educated for a woman of her era. She was expected to marry within the confines of her socioeconomic and religious world, which she did, except that the man that she chose, a German Jewish Westphalian named Ernst Kohlberg, had already immigrated to the United States and had settled in a town so remote from civilization that he himself described it to his German parents in a letter as being located at nearly the end of the world and the last of creation. That town was El Paso. So she followed him to El Paso, leaving behind many other eligible suitors who could have offered her a much more comfortable life in a much more familiar world. She learned English. She raised 4 children, Walter, Herbert, Elsie, and Leo. She supported Ernst in many of his successful business endeavors, and most tellingly, stayed in El Paso even after an anti-Semite murdered Ernst in cold blood in 1910, leaving her a widow for the remaining 25 years of her life. Civic responsibility was the watchword of Reform Judaism, the creed that both Olga and Ernst belonged to, and civic responsibility was the watchword of the progressive era of the turn of the century America, creating a synergy that astonished contemporaries. Olga was everywhere. She helped found Mount Temple Sinai and raised funds for the construction of a synagogue. She helped organize the Child Culture Study Circle, and through that group, she became a major force behind the introduction of kindergarten, a German educational innovation, to El Paso. Fittingly, 2 El Paso schools have been named in her honor, the Olga Kohlberg Pre-Kindergarten and the Olga B. Kohlberg Elementary School. But that's not all she did. She also helped establish the Ladies Benevolent Association and many other similarly named associations, all with the goal of improving health and hospital care. And she co-founded the Cloudcroft Baby Sanatorium, a mountain resort that allowed sickly children from El Paso to escape the oppressive summer heat. And her son-in-law, Dr. Branch Craig, Elsie's first husband, was its first physician. Collectively, these endeavors help safeguard El Paso from the worst effects of influenza, tuberculosis, cholera, and many other public health menaces. But that's not all. Isn't this amazing? Yeah. We could do this for a long time, but I'm almost done. Olga also joined forces with a group of women to organize the El Paso Public Library. She was the second president of the library board of directors, a position that she held until her death in 1935. But that's still not all. She also helped organize the El Paso Women's Club, serving twice as its president and remaining an honorary board member for the rest of her life. And you're going to hear more about that in a minute. What, therefore, could be a more fitting memorial to Olga Bernstein Kohlberg than to dedicate a Texas historical marker for her here at the Women's Club? How wonderful. Thank you.
You know, when you're putting together a program like this, oftentimes you find information, and as I'm sitting there listening to the other folks up front, I'm going, I wrote that in there. I guess I won't have to tell that now. The next lady that I'm going to introduce, before I do that, we have Jeremy Jordan here from City Councilwoman Courtney Nyland here today, and I really appreciate you showing up for this too. Thank you very much. The next lady I'm going to have up here, I met her husband quite a few years ago, sitting at the polling location on the west side of town, and I thought anybody married to that gentleman has got to, well, there's a special place in heaven for them. But then we met her. There's a place for both of them in heaven right now. This young lady is just, she's great. She's so much fun to be around. She's always up, always positive, and a wealth of knowledge, information, and enthusiasm. And with that, I would like to introduce Mary Railey, past president of the Women's Club from 2010-2011.
Thank you. To describe the club activities of Mrs. Olga Kohlberg and convey the type of woman she was is impossible. Only in her day, the men and women who knew her and dealt with her could do that. But I'll try. I quote, "Not only in founding of the Women's Club, in which Mrs. Kohlberg was a major influence, did she see the need of a small western town, so many things to be done, which only women could do, which only women will do. She was the first woman to see and take steps about rectifying the need for a hospital to care for the El Paso sick. She was the woman who interested other women in getting a hospital and other projects established. Her interest in and cooperation with the associated charities is an inspiring story, to say the least." I'm kind of like Bernie, some of it's already been done. On January the 4th, 1899, it was announced that the current Topics Club was now the Women's Club of El Paso. Mrs. Kohlberg was elected president. Another important date was on April the 25th, 1899, the Women's Club was admitted into the Texas Federation of Women's Clubs. Mrs. Kohlberg was a staunch supporter of the Federation. She rarely missed a meeting, including the National Federation meetings in Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, etc., and all over Texas. She was very well traveled. and always had a speech. So they always were inviting her to speak. Her speeches were always well received, and they were usually on the importance of club women, because she knew that in order to get all of these things done, you had to get women to do it, or the education of children. Olga served the Women's Club for 2 terms. During her 2nd term, she opened the October meeting recounting the history of the Women's Club, all 7 years of it, and proudly made the statement that the El Paso Club was the largest in the state. She also said that the spirit of the new woman had not entered the halls of the clubhouse and had expressed her hope that it never would. Now, it wasn't determined what the characteristics of the new woman were, but no one wanted to be that new woman. It was not desirable. Hopefully, she would be happy with us. In that same year, November the 10th, the El Paso Chamber of Commerce was organized. Up until then, the Women's Club filled all of the town's mayors, the aldermen, all of their needs of the meeting, greeting, entertaining the dignitaries and the delegations to the city. Actually, with the founding of the chamber, nothing really changed. They were still the hostesses of the city. In December of 1915, the final fundraising for the club to build an actual clubhouse began with Mrs. Kohlberg as a financial chair, which she was for many years. That's why we were able to do what all we did. I say the final push because even in the middle 1890s, they were already talking about building a clubhouse. As usual, the newspapers were on board. They always covered everything they did, and they printed all donors. I don't know if the amounts were listed, but they probably were. From January to April, these women gained for the coffers $8,000. That was a lot of money, people. It was raised by April, and the Kohlberg donation of $300 was the largest given by an individual, so she believed in what she was doing. The committee, the one that she was on, to find a land suitable for the house was found on the corner of River and Mesa. $300 earnest money was put down on the lots, costing $8,500. They were chosen because it was such a quiet neighborhood. And it was high, and you could overlook the city at night during night concerts. That's why that porch is out there. At the first meeting in March of 1916, Mrs. Kohlberg announced that O.H. Thorman was chosen as architect. By March the 20th, the plans were presented to the Women's Club Board. The work would soon begin on the Women's Club of El Paso's clubhouse, which would be the first in the state of Texas. Mrs. Kohlberg wasn't president that year, but she was at the helm. The finest thing that and I'm going to read this to you because it is such a wonderful tribute. At the time of her death in 1935, the club, the Women's Club, paid a final tribute to her, and I'll quote it. This is in appreciation and acknowledgement of her contribution to the civic and cultural life of El Paso. This yearbook of the Women's Club, 1935-36, is dedicated to Mrs. Olga Kohlberg. Reared and educated in Central Europe, Mrs. Kohlberg came as a bride to pioneer El Paso in 1884. For the next 10 years, she was busy adjusting herself to a new country and establishing her home. She had to learn to speak English. She also learned to speak Spanish fluently. I'm throwing that in, they didn't say that. She was accustomed to the best of music, art, and literature, And Mrs. Kohlberg, along with other cultured women, felt the need of meeting together to read and discuss world events. The group organized the Current Topics Club in May of 1894. 5 years later, the Current Topics Club became the Woman's Club of El Paso, with Mrs. Kohlberg as president. Now, that is the reason she was not considered the first president of the club. She was, because Mrs. W.W. Mills was. But she was the first president when the name changed to the Woman's Club. She served in this office for 2 terms and was a member of the board of directors until her death. For 30 years, Mrs. Kohlberg was chairman of the finance committee, and under her guidance, the present clubhouse was built. The most significant thing in her long association with the club was her faithful attendance in both meetings and directors' meetings. She was always there. She was always there to give word of encouragement or praise to the speaker. In directing the policy of the club, she knew no fear, but had the courage to speak for or against any cause that her excellent judgment dictated. To music, art, literature, and civic questions, she gave her sponsorship. The Woman's Club, under her leadership, introduced the kindergarten into the public schools. Let me say a minute, something about that. She and Mrs. Mills and a bunch of other ladies, a group of ladies, formed what they called the Child Culture Study Circle. Now, this predates the Current Topics Club. They did not include that as a mandate for the Women's Club. It was just the Current Topics. But it was earlier. She brought with her the idea of a kindergarten, that children should start school at 5 instead of 6. And they were willing to put their money where their mouth was. The Child Culture Circle paid for the first teacher. They bought all of the equipment. They bought everything the children would need. Now, there was a tuition involved. I don't remember what it was. But there was a tuition involved, and they went before the Board of Education with their idea about a kindergarten. Well, they didn't get what they wanted. But they did get a room. And they were willing to pay for it. They were willing to pay the teacher and do all of that. Well, it was so successful that when they were able to talk the board into actually having a kindergarten, that kindergarten, Olga's first kindergarten, was earlier, the one that they supported. The second kindergarten was still the first kindergarten in the state of Texas, still. And the Board of Education did go along with that. And that was also the first kindergarten. She was a dynamic woman. And her other love is she aided in establishing the public library, which goes along with education and children and all of this. And she was the second president of the El Paso Library Association Board. The first one was Miss Stanton, who was also a charter member of the Women's Club. And she was a librarian. So when Olga took over, it was February the 7th, 1903, and she served in that capacity until August the 12th, 1935. Pretty amazing. Miss Kohlberg had a vision for the Women's Club and for club women. In all the years of her service, she never lost her faith in what the club could accomplish or the force it could be in the community. Olga Kohlberg seemed to have boundless enthusiasm. Our club was fortunate to have her wise counseling for so many years. Her interest in this club never waned, and she continued a long, loyal, and active member for 41 years. What a woman.
Tripper and I were talking before we started about the cigar factory, and I found these, well, it's a cigar band and then an advertisement for Kohlberg Brothers Cigar Factory. I thought I would make up some artificial cigars and put them on there, but... Are you opening the store back up?
Yeah, I think I will.
Yeah.
Any volunteers?
Eleanor just said cigars are coming back in style, and so she's going to open up the Kohlberg Brothers again. Kohlberg Brothers and Eleanor. Yeah. I found some more other pictures that are really great, but I'll try to flip through those. Before I go too much further, I have to say something very nice about Eleanor. A lot of things will be said about her and have been all her life because, after all, she is a Kohlberg. I had the honor to meet her a few years ago when there was a celebration of a birthday for his grade school over here on the east side of town, actually Central. And it was great because afterwards she came up and talked to us, and we just had a wonderful time visiting, and I went, who's she? And then I went home and looked it up. I went, oh, now I know. So it's a great honor to be sitting at the same table with you and your son and daughter, and I appreciate that a lot. But before I go too further, let me introduce Eleanor Goodman, the granddaughter of Olga Kohlberg.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank all of you for being here and for the wonderful program. I had no idea that she was so outstanding. But my family has come along in that tradition. My son, Leonard Goodman III.
Acting more and more like my grandmother.
Let's take you up to the microphone. Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid. All right, let me get ready. Get those legs working. All right, yeah. And watch this, and watch the other. Be careful and don't fall. That's all I hear these days. Okay. Let me just set that there. I better hold it. I better have you along with me. You don't mind? Ooh. You don't mind Elizabeth being alongside me in case I would take a tumble. I wouldn't like that. The part of this program that I am going to do is to give you the inside, because you only got the outside view, the inside of Olga Kohlberg, because I lived with her in her home up on Corto Street. No, it was West Yandell, 600 West Yandell. The home was built and designed by Trost in 19... Who's that?
It's just, it's okay.
It was designed by Trost. Somebody else wants to talk now? I'm short. Okay. There, can I manage now? It was designed by the famous architect Trost here in this city, and it was built in 1910. It took 3 years. It was started in 1907, and it took 3 years to build it. It was a great, outstanding looking and very forbidding looking home. If you've ever driven by it, it's across the street from the Historical Society, which was the Perrineau home, off of West Yandell. And my grandparents designed it along with the architect, and they took great pride in the fact that it was very austere looking, it was very forbidding looking. It looked like a German castle, and it had the big pillars in front, and it had big steps in front. I would never be able to handle them today, but it was a very formidable building, and it had 14 rooms, and at one time my father and mother and I had to live in the home with my grandmother, which I can tell you at an age of 7, 8, 9 was the most difficult time of my life. Grandmother and I didn't always see eye to eye. To say the least, I was very obstreperous. I was an obstreperous child. She didn't care for children at that age. She raised her 4, and that was enough for her. But unfortunately, it was Depression times, and so because of economic problems and the fabric of the cigar business was going down, cigarettes were beginning to take over. So we moved into grandmother's house, and I kicking the stones, going up the stairs, and very unhappy that we were going to have to be there. Excuse me, I don't mean to ignore you all. This is the way it is. I can't do anything about it. Anyway, so she wasn't very happy to see us either. Walter was her eldest son. He was the eldest of 4. And I was an only child. And only children should just never happen. It's just very hard on them. I have 3 of them now as grandchildren. But they really didn't welcome us particularly. We had a suite in the house. It was a 2-story house with an outdoor sun porch or backyard sun porch that was on the side. Every home had a big sun porch, screened-in sun porch, and a front sun porch where you sat with a, what do you call them? Swings? Layout, like a glider. And you sat on those after no television, no radio, nothing like that. And we sat on the porch after dinner and all swaying on the swing and enjoyed ourselves and traded family stories. So I heard a lot during that time. And also, she had to watch my ballet classes, watch my ballet demonstrations, and she had to watch my cartwheels, and she had to watch all these things. But also, I had to put up with always having to be proper, always having to be correct, always having to have a smile. Yes, grandmother, yes, grandmother. She was of the Prussian generation. She was very Prussian, very intelligent, very not warm, fuzzy, and huggy. Not a bit. Not a bit. But she was the owner of the house, and I had to behave. So I tried very hard, but not hard enough, I think. Some of the things that happened I will go into, but not for very long, because I don't want to bore you. But I used to sit on the top level of the house. The house had, I said, 14 rooms. We had a suite of rooms, bedroom, living room, and of course all the necessary things that you had to have in those days. And now, bathroom. So I used to sit on the edge of the bedroom by the banister where you would go downstairs, upstairs, and everything was the front area. Then there was the servants' area. Remember, those were days long ago when everybody that this family knew had servants in 1, 2, and 3, and that sort of thing. So I was raised in that kind of an environment. But I would sit there at the banisters, and she would be having some of her meetings of her people that were working with her on her community work. She would have them downstairs in the music room. Living rooms weren't in style in those days. There was a library and a front entrance, a front room, and then the music room. So she would have all these people there for meetings and for festivities and all of these things, and I would be sitting up on the banister like that, peeking and looking around and peeking at all those people, and I wish I had a spitball or something that I could throw at them. But anyway, she caught me, and she took me into the kitchen, and she took out her strap, which she always carried inside underneath. I wish I had a picture of her with her long gray, and this time she was a very nice looking lady, not beautiful, but very nice looking at her entrance to El Paso. And she was I want to diverse here, a really great person to come to this community and do the things that needed to be done. This community had to move forward, and she contributed a great deal to this community, and my children have too, and I'm very proud of my family, and I was proud of my husband, who was a great community person as well. But she added a lot to this community, and she continued to. So at this point in her life, she was entitled to be the matriarch, and she was. And so these people would come and almost bow to Mrs. Kohlberg because she did so much for the community. But I sat up on the banister with my legs hanging down, and I would look at them and I'd wave to some of the people if I knew them or if I didn't. Well, she didn't really like that too much. She was very much of a Prussian lady and very tall, not very attractive looking, but she wore long gray silk dresses, and they always looked gray to me. But anyway, the boots were up to practically her knees, and the dress was practically there. And she always looked like a matriarch, and she always looked old to me. Old. But anyway, that was one story. We used to trade around the kitchen area. So that's where I was allowed, was the kitchen. And I was always allowed to lick the bowls of the chocolate cakes being prepared for dinner. The most famous story that I want to tell about her, and then I won't dwell on that anymore, because she really was a very contributing person to this community. And I want to honor her in a not disparage her, because she did contribute. Lots of things in this community are due to the beginnings that she established. And I want to say that my family has continued to do those things in this community, and I'm proud of them. But was the episode of the Sunday dinner. I'm sure many of you have heard stories that contribute closely to this, but this is the original. And the original is there was Sunday dinner at the Kohlberg house always, and we always had pineapple upside down cake, which Maria would very, very conveniently make. Anyway, the dinner was set. It was formal. It was at noon, and it was required by all the family members. And there were place cards, and I was included because I was the only child in the family. So they proceeded, and grandmother said the grace, and grandmother sat at the head of the table, and everyone was very properly attired and very attentive. So as Maria walked in the door, the floor was like this wooden thing, and Maria had on flats, of course, and she walked in, and as she did walk in, she slipped and tripped. And as she tripped, this very large turkey slipped off the platter and landed flat on the floor. And everybody was astounded. They didn't know what to do. One person looked at the other, and another person looked at the other one. Grandmother was speechless, which was not often the case. But so she very promptly stood up and said, "Maria, if you would, please take the turkey into the kitchen and bring the other one in." So Maria, being smart and having worked there at the Kohlberg house for a long time, she knew exactly what to do. She picked it up, put it back dusted it off a little bit, and put it back on the platter, and promptly went into the kitchen with it. As she was in the kitchen, I was there, of course, to look and see what was happening. I slipped out of my chair at the dinner table and went in to see what she was up to. And she took a towel, a very nice clean towel, and brushed off the turkey, and then and arranged all the parsley and all the other things, and arranged them all around the turkey, and very properly put the parsley. So then she promptly took it back in. "Madame, Yes, here it is. Oh, thank you for bringing me the other one, Maria. I'm so glad you were so everybody kind of smiled. Of course, they really knew what was happening. And everybody took a very small portion of the turkey. Anyway, those were one of the very, very interesting, or I don't say interesting, but to the family it was interesting, stories that circled around Olga Kohlberg. And all the people there at the table knew exactly what had happened, but they were accustomed to her. And they went along with all of her antics. And she was a very, as I remember her, very strong and stern and serious woman. She was very serious in making this part of the world a better place for those people that happen to be here and happen to earn their living here. And there are lots of good people that have come from this community and lots of important people that have come from this community. And I honor her, and I honor the family that she began here, and I honor her family in Germany, and they were outstanding, and I thank all of them for giving us this opportunity to live in this community and do good things for it. And I'm proud to be Eleanor Goodman. And I'm proud of my family, my very outstanding family. My son, who's done much contributing work to the community, he passed the bond issue in 1912, and his father was also a very outstanding community leader. My daughter, my oldest daughter, Elizabeth Goodman, is an outstanding community girl, I want to say. I call her a girl. But anyway, I'm very proud, and I'm proud to be part of this community. Thank you all very much for listening to me.
How many folks saw the movie Christmas Story? When she started talking about the turkey, I thought they were going to all go out for Chinese food.
Could be, but I don't think there are any Chinese restaurants here.
That was great. I love it. We all have family stories that we like to share from time to time, and someday I'll share some of mine. No, we don't want to do that. Next up, I want to introduce a gentleman who I've met quite a few times. I think the last time we had a long conversation was on board Southwest Airlines flying back into El Paso. And I was very impressed, I always have been, as his mother proudly says, he's a great contributor to the community of El Paso. And I would like for Tripper Goodman to come up here and share a few words with us.
Thank you. It's going to be hard for me to top that, so I'm not going to do that. Just a couple of quick things. First off, thank you to the Women's Club for doing this. This is a great honor for our family. We appreciate what you all have done. We're proud of our ancestor, Olga, but thank you. A lot of times people do things and they don't do it to get recognition, but it's nice to be recognized. So thank you all for doing that. I appreciate it very much. The only few things I would say, first off, is as you heard that turkey story, and we heard that over the years many times, and it's never changed. It's all the same. And Mom has been right on that. But I will tell you that I will speak for my siblings and myself, that myself and my sister who are here, and I have another sister and a brother, we always got a little nervous when we ever saw a turkey coming out of the kitchen. we just weren't sure really what was going to happen there. So. But a couple of things I would like to say. Number one is that, of course, we're very fortunate to have somebody like that as a descendant. We're descendants of Olga Kohlberg. It's a wonderful role model. Mom did many, many things herself in the community, and she became a role model for us, for me, and I think we're lucky, and I consider myself lucky, that we have role models. There are a lot of people that do things that don't have role models, and I admire them because they don't have somebody to look up to, but they do it themselves. And Olga Kohlberg, when she came here in 1884, the population, and Bernie, you probably know this, or you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think was 10,000 people in El Paso. And so it was an extremely small community. And at the time, she obviously got right into it. As Mom said, she spent a few years raising a family and doing a number of things, but consequently, she got right into the community and made a huge, huge impact. And in those days, women were making an impact in El Paso, and I would tell you that there were a lot of men that were involved, but the women seemed to really, Mary Stanton, there were a number of others that really did a lot in El Paso, and that's called leadership. And the women provided that leadership as much as the men did, certainly at that time and even going on. So I was lucky to have a role model like Olga Kohlberg and other family members. The other part of this, I think, which is really important, is that El Paso is a unique town. It's not even a town anymore. It's a city. What are we? 800,000 people. So we've grown a little bit since 1885. And as a city, we are somebody that did what we did with Olga Kohlberg. We welcome people. We welcome people from all parts of the country, all parts of life. And I know there are people that have moved back here, like Mary and I were talking. She and Togo moved back here. There are lots of young people moving here. And this is a unique community. And I think the community is growing, built on the vision of Olga Kohlberg's and Mary Stanton's and many, many other people who have contributed. And so I think we need to celebrate this community, and we need to celebrate organizations like this who not only continue with it, but started it. And we're just fortunate to have this. I never met Olga Kohlberg. She was a few years older than me, and but I heard the stories. And I try to say that weaving all of that into what this city is and what this city is going to be and continues to be. Lots of young people are moving back here. I know a number of you are probably aware of that. And more are starting to come back here. And there are a lot of great things happening. Jackson Polk is heavily involved in doing a lot of things. There are a lot of people in this room that are involved. And so we work on the vision that people like Olga Kohlberg and many others have done for this community. So thank you again for honoring us and our family. Appreciate it very much.
I'm just going to say something very quick. Most everything's already been said. My husband and I have a wonderful daughter by the name of Olivia Kohlberg Levy. And when we were selecting her name, we wanted to give a nod. When we were selecting her name, when we knew we were going to have her, we wanted to give a nod to my mother's family. So we decided to put the name Kohlberg in, and I certainly didn't want to use the name Olga, which was the name my parents were going to give me when I was young, when I was growing up. And I used to say, thank goodness, Mom, you didn't give me the name Olga, because I just couldn't see boys calling the house and asking for Olga. And so we decided that we wouldn't do that to our daughter, so we substituted the name Olivia Kohlberg Levy. My husband and I are both dark-haired and dark-eyed, and we have a daughter that's as blonde-haired and blue-eyed as they come, and both of us laugh about that because, and certainly in the Goodman Kohlberg family, other than Olga, there are no blue-eyed, blonde-haired children. And we often say that Leah is kind of a reminiscent, a throwback to Olga Kohlberg. She has the blue eyes that Olga had. And so that's my contribution. That's my story.
Tripper, you said something about people get nervous when you come out of the kitchen. Is that why you got the nickname Tripper?
That's the clean version.
Well, before we wrap this up, I know that the marker is in location that is a little bit difficult for most of us to get to, so I've got a picture of it. But I wanted to mention a couple things very quickly. I wanted to thank the Inc., the Times, I want to thank Jackson for filming this. I want to thank Everett from the Museum of History, who is, will have announcements on this digital wall, and some of this will probably show up somewhere on the digital wall. So we appreciate that. And very appreciative of everybody being here, my cohorts in the El Paso County Historic Commission. This coming Monday, now because of the Martin Luther King holiday, they didn't have a Commissioners Court meeting this last Monday. This is the proclamation that they're going to be issuing in honor of Olga Kohlberg and the unveiling of the marker. So if y'all can be there at the County Commissioners Court on Monday morning, January 26th, approximately 9 o'clock, depending on how much they talk, they will do the official proclamation honoring Olga Kohlberg on behalf of the county. So I wanted to mention that to you. Without further ado, I wanted to show you what the marker looks like outside so you don't have to climb over the hedges. One more time. Yeah. So that would be the historical marker for Olga Kohlberg that we put together so you could all see it. God bless you all. Thank you for being here. It's a wonderful audience and a great group of ladies. And thank you, gentlemen, for supporting your wives. And we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
We in the Women's Club are so appreciative of this wonderful honor and of having this plaque in front of our building. We know what a wonderful person Olga Kohlberg was and what she did for our community, and that she was one of the founders of the Women's Club, and we are really very appreciative and so honored to have this in the front of our building. It really is something that makes our building stand out, and we're so proud to be a part of it. So thank you very, very much.
The County Historic Commission is mandated by the state of Texas to do, amongst other things, place markers honoring people, places, and things that affected and impacted in a positive way the communities of El Paso, West Texas, and the state of Texas. We're proud to say that Olga Bernstein Kohlberg was just one of those kind of people that made a tremendous impact on our community, influenced West Texas and the entire state.